All right, guys, we are live. I hope it's not lagging too much and you guys can hear me. My wife told me I have to wait for a few seconds to do my introductions because they've been got like cut off, but hopefully we're past that point. I'm so happy to be here. This is the second time I've had this amazing guest on my show, and thank you for being here, João F. Silva. How are you?
I'm great. It's such an honor and privilege to be invited not only once but twice for your channel, which is just honestly really, really kind of you to do. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
So yeah, this isn't the last time either, man. The people that I found in the indie community, the indie fantasy community, they really have just treated me like family, and I'll always return that. It really just speaks to my morals and my foundation. And you're one of the very first guys that was like, "Oh, you're a new channel. I'm still gonna come on and give you a chance." And you've been with me since the beginning, man. So I love it.
Of course, man. It's like, it's like I was once an up and comer. It's like I feel like I'm still an up and comer in many ways. So it's like I think the feeling never really goes away, no matter how long you're doing it, whatever you're doing. So yeah, I mean, it's my pleasure.
So I think just to kind of like start things off, man, one of the coolest things that I've seen in the last couple, well, I think it's been 2 or 3 days. Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, but being Charlie Cavendish's top read of the year, man, how cool.
Crazy. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I mean, to be honest, like I've known Charlie ever since I published the book. I didn't know him before, but he's been such a feverish supporter of Seeds of War and of my writing career in general. Like he's been such a staunch supporter in many ways, and obviously it's an absolute honor to be at his list. It's just I never even once thought people were gonna select my book to be in these lists, but they have, and Charlie's a great one. I'm actually going to meet him in a few weeks. Actually, he's gonna.
Oh, I heard he's coming to the UK.
Yeah. We're gonna do like a little gathering, and he's gonna come, and I think Jolie is gonna come all the way from Boston as well. So we're gonna have a little gathering. Yeah.
So I'm going to touch on something else real quick, but we have some wonderful, wonderful people who have showed up to talk with us and watch us, and I just love it, man. I love all these people. Caden Love was the first one.
Hey,
the baby face, the man with a wonderful book that I cannot wait to read, hopefully very soon, Caden. I hear that in the next couple of weeks you're going to be doing your e-arcs or whatever kind of arcs that you're doing. And man, I'm just so excited for you. You're really a community guy. You and Charlie and pretty much everybody else I'm about to talk about, man. It's just really one of those things I get. It comes full circle. I see so many of these people so dedicated to the passion that we all have, and that is literature. David Hopkins, I'm so happy you're here, man.
Nice to see you here, David.
Yes, writer of the Dryad Crown. So happy you're here, man. Loved talking with him as well.
David is also my first patron ever.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, that's true.
That is so cool. I have to shout out my first patron now because I see him over here. Timothy Wolf.
Nice.
Yes, he's another guy, just like you, man. It's just like from the very first, I've only got like 5 patrons at the moment. It's still very young. But to have the support of even just, anybody, it's just amazing. And I love it. And I'm so happy that you said that because I feel the same way about Timothy. Ryan Skeffington, I have your book right here because I brought a bunch of books that are like on my immediate TBR. Lost Souls, that's Ryan's book. And so far, man, I'm not super far into it. I'm like 12 pages. Loving it, Ryan. And I also like that John Minton from Talking Story is shouting out about your book, Ryan. We have Sean Halpin. Thank you for, he's got a BookTube channel. He likes to read basically the same things I do, man. Really kind of dark fantasy. I love to see your posts on Twitter, man.
Yeah. Sean's been a very big supporter as well since day one, pretty much for me.
when he seen it, we were talking today, he commented, he's like, dude, I will be there. I love João. Bert, of course, Bert's
Oh yeah,
always
Bert.
here. He's such a community guy as well. Thank you, man, for being here.
Hey,
Of course,
Bert.
Timothy, happy Wednesday to you. I hope you're having a good one. Christopher Navo, brother, another booktube guy. Super happy you're here. It's always wonderful. He's always got the best. I don't know. He's got a great attitude, and he's always like in the comments of anybody I watch, and I just like the interaction he has, and it helps us to see other people just getting along in the way that he does with the rest of people. It's just very inspiring. So thank you, Chris, for stopping in. Let's see, Christopher D. Brand, another wonderful author. Thank you for popping in. I was actually emailing him.
We're in really good company this evening, it seems like.
It's funny because like when I started the channel, like I do this part where I introduce us and we talk for a second, but then I introduce my viewers, and it's been like gradually growing. Like I'm very winded by the time I'm done with these initial comments, which is a very good problem to have.
Yeah.
And then HC Newell, thank you. Let's see here. Isaac Anderson, he's also an indie author, The Garden Maze. And oh my goodness, one of the, I don't know, probably number 1 or 2 in the reviewers if I read it. Like I'm reading that book that she's talking about. Esme Rosalind.
She has some of my favorite blurbs of Seeds of War, like little quotes from her review that are some of my favorite ones that anyone's ever written about the book. So props to Esme.
Yeah, when I see, because this year I really, all this is new to me within the last 4 or 5 years, but writing reviews is very new to me. It's something that I'm kind of like self-conscious about because I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't know. That kind of sounds I think as long as you're writing something and it's something that's honest, you can't really go wrong with it. That makes me very happy because I am very honest about the way that a book makes me feel and what made me feel that way. But when I read Esme's, she's got it down. Like and not only that, she reads so fast. Like, oh my gosh, are these books that you're reviewing like from a past list that you've had read for a while, or like you just really reading that fast?
She's just a machine. Like she's awesome.
Yeah. So huge props to Esme. Thank you for stopping in. Corey, my guy, another indie author. Hoping I'm not missing anybody. So that's one of the things, man. I'm 6'5", and my hands are huge, so I can palm most books. It's a big book if I can't palm it. But by the way, Ryan, loving the profile picture with the beard, just no shame in the beard, brother. Loving it. Craig, I feel like I know you, and I know I don't think we've ever talked before, but like being a part of FanFi Addict, I'm always seeing through the thread that we have and like your reviews, another wonderful reviewer, a guy that I look up to in that sense, and I'm glad you're here, Craig.
I met Craig in September for FantasyCon in Birmingham. So he's an awesome guy.
That's amazing. And if I'm right, I'm probably wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway, just in case I am right. I think he just celebrated a birthday. So if that was you, and I'm not crazy, then happy late birthday. So for anybody who doesn't know, anybody watching that may not have be familiar with what you do, let us know about the Smoke Spit series, the Seeds of War. Give us a little overview, the subgenre, the thing that you've done a million times.
Yeah, sure. So I've published these 2 books, Seeds of War and Ruins of Smoke, which is a prequel novella. And yeah, so it's an epic fantasy series for the most part. I would call it an epic fantasy. I think everyone would agree it's an epic fantasy. Some people say it's a bit grimdark. Some people say it's not that grimdark. I guess it depends on how you define grimdark and how you define your...
It's a very subjective term.
Exactly. So I just call it epic fantasy usually. but it's an epic fantasy that follows three different characters throughout the series, and one of them is Gimlor. She's a single mother and war veteran who is now settling in a small town and sort of created a little crime empire for herself. The other character is Orbresis. He's basically a con man and petty thief. Oh yeah, that's the map. Nice. He's a con man and petty thief, and he's basically protecting a secret. And because of the secret, he needs to really get his stuff together. And he's essentially pulling on a con on everyone, pretending that he's God, essentially. And the third character is Red now. He's a mercenary, but he's basically already on his last legs. He's quite old, quite experienced, and he's a smokesmith, which are people who can use sort of like a smoke-based magic that is it's quite dangerous.
That was not
Nice,
cute.
nice touch. That was a nice touch. Yeah. It's kind of it's very dangerous to the users, and a lot of people who try to see if they can become smokesmiths. Most of them end up dying in the process. So it's not something that anyone can become, which makes it all the more difficult, and it makes smokesmiths all the more dangerous because they have some crazy powers with that smoke of theirs. And yeah, so that's the main storyline. And then for Runes of Smoke, I basically took a step back and did a bit of a prequel that follows the events of a day that happened way before Seeds of War, but it's actually quite important to understand the world of the main series. And yeah, so I mean, I'm just going to do a little plug. Like the ebook for Seeds of War is actually for free on my website, and people want to subscribe to my newsletter. You can just read the ebook for free.
And also down here, I have on the ticker where you need to go, and he's also got a short story. What's the name of the short story?
Yeah, it's actually two short stories in the thread. The first one is called A Dead Man, and the second one is called The Cavalry.
Amazing. I think that anybody, especially an indie author, where you can just, okay, so I'm watching this interview for the first time. I'm really interested, and I want to know if buying your book is what I want to do. Okay, I'm going to subscribe. I'm going to, read these short stories, and if I like your writing, boom, there's evidence right in front of them that they're going to enjoy and spending their money and to enjoy your book. I think anybody who does that is wonderful. Real quick, I wanted to shout out LL McCrae.
Hey,
so
Lauren.
happy to see you.
Nice.
Can't wait to talk with her. Her writing is just like, right? It's amazing.
Chef's kiss.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. And another thing that, real quick, sorry. I see some wonderful comments I'll get to first. Smoke Magic is so unique. The novella is absolutely perfect.
Thank you so much, Craig. I appreciate that.
And Chris says, I loved Seeds of War. The first arc I covered on my channel. Oh, that's very cool, man. And definitely in my top reads of 2023. That's amazing.
Thank you very much, Christopher.
So I started a new podcast with three other wonderful guys, DB Rook, David T. List, and Tom Bookbeard. And we were talking the other day on our first podcast, and we were talking about, I believe, our favorite ingredients that we enjoy in a fantasy book. And I don't remember what the topic was, but Tom went off on like this tangent about, I think it was softer magic, or like not just using magic like unlimitedly, just very, very like a very hard, like a Brandon Sanderson. Loved Brandon Sanderson, but a lot of his stuff is too hard of a magic system for me, like classifying things and points and abilities. But anyway, Tom went on I think a 2 or 3 minute tangent about Seeds of War. He's like, dude, and I told him I was about to read it, and he's like, dude, this magic system that he uses, the Smokesmiths, he said, It's brilliant. It's exactly what you're saying you love in a book. And he's like, "Have you read it?" I said, "Dude, I'm right there. It's at the top of my TBR." And he's like, "You will love that book. I loved it so much." And like I said, he just showed that book so much love. It was cool to hear.
Tom also wrote a really awesome review for the book.
He is. I can't wait to read. It's cool because you see how well people do it, writing reviews. I can just imagine how cool this book's going to be when it comes out. Right. Smokesmith is Sando level magic naming. I agree. And I think the context for that was Smokesmith is a great word. So smoke magic is so unique. The novella is perfect. Ruins of Smoke felt like The Fall meets. Oh my gosh, dude. He just talked me into like stopping everything that I'm doing right now. Like even this interview. Let's just start reading, right?
I kind of like that comparison that Caden is making. That's a nice one.
The Fall is the first Ryan Cahill book I read. And wow. And then I've put 120 hours on Elden Ring. So that was just the best analogy or comparison.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed both of them quite a bit. So it's, I can definitely take that as a compliment.
Chris, dude, that should be somewhere written in stone. Too hard of a magic system can take the magic out of it. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I love that. And David said this. He's pointing up to that comment. Yes, very much so. And no, don't stop the internet. No, we won't. I'll wait. I'll control myself. And lovely. Thank you so much, Brian. This is Brian. I'm going to tell on you. This is Brian D. Anderson, a wonderful author himself. He's currently, I don't know if he's currently right. He's currently about to release The Child, which is part of the Conan franchise. Him and a bunch of other guys are writing stories in the Conan franchise. It's really cool.
Nice.
So thank you for being here, man.
Awesome.
He said, I just got back home from getting some smoke magic from the dispensary. Shazam, dude. Enjoy, brother.
Nice.
I live in Ohio, and they just made cannabis recreationally legal here. I'm not a huge cannabis user, but, there's a time and place for it. And for those that it helps, like you, Brian, man, that's wonderful. Enjoy it. And Ryan said, the hair is magnificent. Brian's, he's a badass, dude. He's just on a motorcycle. He's just a badass. E.L. Montague says, when magic become technology, it's called, science fiction.
Yeah, I think we could debate here for quite a long time what the intersection is between fantasy and science fiction, because, like, a lot of the biggest sci-fi books of the moment, like the Red Rising series, for example, it kind of reads like a fantasy book in many ways to me. But I think there's a lot of overlap, to be honest. Like, I'm personally not a massive fan of the overlaps. I like science fiction to be science fiction and fantasy to be fantasy, but I can definitely understand that some people prefer like the overlap, and I think there's room for it.
I'm reading concurrent with a couple other books at the moment. One being The Hunter's Lament. By
Stephen Conant, right?
Yeah. So good. So I'm barely even into it, and it's wonderful. But what was I'm also reading a traditionally published book at the same time, Empire of Silence by Christopher Rocchio. And that Christopher Rocchio's book, The Empire of Silence, and Red Rising are both. I've heard both of those series to overlap fantasy and science fiction, and so far I'm really loving Empire. So it's one of those you do very slowly, you digest it. So we'll see at the end of that book, I'll know. And then I've also got Red Rising. I haven't read it yet, but at the end of those, I think I'll have a pretty good grasp on whether or not I like, because like you said, I love science fiction and I love fantasy. So when they cross, we'll see how that is. But back to you, man. Where did your inspiration for writing the Smokesmith series come from? How did that come to light?
So I think my process is a little different than I guess many people, like because I've been trying to write books for quite a while. I mean, I think some people have been obviously been doing it for a lot longer, but I started out in 2017, and for about 3 years, I just started several books and never really finished any of them until 2020, I think. And for those 3 years, I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, but I never really finished anything because by the time I was done with those books, I was reading them back, and I'm like, this is complete garbage. Like I don't like any of this. But all of the stories had something in common, which is like all of them had little bits of things here and there that were really cool. I thought they were really cool. So there was one day that I was like, what if I just write a story that kind of combines all the cool things from all these other stories that I've ever written, pretty much. And that's kind of what I did. I pulled each of the characters from different stories. Obviously, I had to adapt them to the setting and to the plot and everything else, but that's essentially what I did. And the smoke magic was pulled from another story that I had written as well,
Wow.
which was quite interesting. It's just like basically like a bunch of recycling happening. And to be honest, I'm really happy with the final product because I think it's quite hard to make a book really stand out and really work if you're
Yeah.
putting everything into like one idea or like one character and like make it work just off of one idea or one character. I think the best books and the best ideas are books that tick several boxes. You know, like for example, Tom was saying that the things that he finds that he enjoys in books, and I was thinking about this actually quite recently about why do I like certain books, and I think the reason why a lot of people like Brandon Sanderson's books is because he ticks so many boxes. He has like good characters, he has plot twists, he has strong magic systems, he has good world building, or like just at least very extensive world building, and he also has romantic subplots. He also has mystery subplots. He has a little bit for everyone. And if you don't like certain ideas, then you have something else to hold on to. But if you write a
Ooh.
book with only like one idea or two ideas, and your reader doesn't like that idea or doesn't like that specific character, then the rest of the book is going to fall flat for them. So I think it's a lot easier to make a book really work when you have a lot of solid ideas taking
Ooh.
place at the same time.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I want to kind of stop on that for a second because you just made
Yeah,
me really think about a lot of things. That's a wonderful point. So having multiple themes or in the way that you reference it, checking multiple boxes can only, as long as it's done the right way, in a way that you think as an author, because we're all unique, really wraps everything up nicely. uh, Checking those boxes is only going to keep people who may have dipped out of this novel into this novel.
yeah.
So as a writer, I'm taking that advice as a writer, um, to check multiple boxes. I really like that. I think I was gonna say something a lot more complex than that, but that's easily just summed up the way you said it. Check multiple boxes. I
And
love it.
even if something like, for example, like when you're thinking about books in general, like if you think about it, think about your favorite books. Like chances are they have multiple tropes that you enjoy. Like for example, animal companions or like dragons or
Mhm.
cool weapons or like stuff like that. They tick those boxes because those are things that people tend to enjoy in the genre. So if it has multiple of them, then
Mm.
chances are people are going to enjoy it.
I'm thinking of Ryan Cahill's The Fall and uh, wow, I can't believe I just lost the first
Blood
book
and
name.
Fire, right?
Blood and Fire. Yeah, I'm on Of Darkness and Light at the moment, but a Blood and Fire. I'm thinking for me personally, and taking what you said, checking boxes, there's my dearest of tropes in that book. Like you've got, there's taverns and inns. You're on an adventure. You're meeting people. I just love that. That's so cozy to me.
Yeah.
And then there's this part where okay, this event just happened, and this group of people or this person is now inevitably on this adventure, and I get this like giddy feeling in my stomach.
Yeah.
So just kind of comparing what you said and the advice you just gave, and thinking about some of my favorite reads, that makes total sense. Thank you for that.
Yeah. No worries, man. That's just my view anyway.
It's a wonderful one. I hear lots of different viewpoints, and I think really you just summed a lot of them up, man. That was great. And let me check over here real quick. One thing I'm learning to do a little bit better is keep up with my comments because, man, they're so good.
Yeah,
Such
man.
wonderful comments that I get. Silverstones, man, thank you for being
Hey,
here.
how's it going?
I'm so happy to see him in a physical store, and I've seen your book in like the videos that I've seen from him.
Yeah.
That's got
It's
to
been
be so
amazing.
cool.
Like Silverstones has been amazing at selling and even talking about Seeds of War, and it's been awesome to have somewhere in the U.S. where I can actually sell my physical books, which is amazing.
Yeah, and I forget that aspect of your experience or DB Rook's experience or anybody that's outside the U.S. because I live in the U.S. and I just automatically assume that whoever, I know that you're not in the US, but what I mean is my brain, my subconscious is just like, oh, okay. But yeah, to be in the UK or Australia or New Zealand and be able to have your book have this foundation, this home away from home, that's got to feel
Yeah.
so nice. Let's see here. Ella McCrae says the Winnowing Flame trilogy by Jen Williams was definitely science fans. Oh, that's a new one for me. I have to write that down. Thank you for the
I only read
recommendation.
the first one, The Ninth Reign, and I really enjoyed it, but I didn't continue it yet because I just have too many books to read.
You said The Ninth Reign?
Yeah.
I absolutely know that book. The cover just popped in my head. I just didn't know the author.
Yeah.
I've just recently caught on to this one, Craig. Yuval Kordov's Dark Legacy series is a sublime meshing of fantasy and science fiction. I actually just messaged him, and I think it was another read from Charlie's top reads of 2023. And I saw it, and I had seen the cover before. I just hadn't really dove into it. And the premise, that's what it looks like. It's like, okay, I see like this robot thing, and then like the Lord of the Rings kind of a mountain in the background. So you've got this, it's going to be science fantasy mix. I'm glad to hear that people are loving that because I can't wait to talk with him. I think that's such a cool thing. He says, Silverstones, they say the genre blurring is fun at times. 1 second, my computer does this weird thing. Anyway, but reading books that are distinctly one or the other tend to be more immersive for me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I can definitely understand that. Let's see. Brian D. Anderson says, you should read Anne McCaffrey. She pioneered science fantasy. Wow. This is what I love about Brian. He is an OG. This is his words. I talked to him on the chain. He is the OG indie publisher or indie published author. He talked because he's been traditionally published, indie published, and he did it in a time where it wasn't so easy. It wasn't what people were doing now with publishing independently. So
people have a lot more resources now than there was back in the day.
He's just one of those guys I have to have back on with so many fun stories, man.
And if he's talking about Dragonlance, I agree. Like, you should definitely read it. It's really fun.
Dragonlance?
Yeah. I mean, I suspect that's what he's talking about, but yeah.
Pop in, let us know, Brian. Yes, Chris says, it's Empire of Silence. Awesome book. I'm loving it so far. Just starting Howling Dark. And yeah, I've been reading these slowly. You can't go through them fast. At least I can't. I would miss so many beautiful details and points and themes and characters and events that are happening that you kind of have to digest to really understand and kind of think on. If you just kind of read fast through those, you're not going to get the experience I think that Chris Rucchio intended, because I believe that his words were he hopes that the Sun Eater series outlasts and stands the test of time, which is something I think every author would love. but I see what he's doing, and that's really cool. I'm glad to hear that you love that, Christopher. I'm looking forward. He's got the best titles too, like
Yeah.
Empire of Silence, Howling Dark, The Demon in White. Come on.
Yeah. I'm jealous of that.
So, I don't. I'm Seeds of War is pretty badass, dude. Like
Yeah.
that speaks to you just right off the rip,
Yeah. I
and it
think it
makes
has
sense
to
too.
book. It makes sense with the story. I think by the end of the story, people will understand where the name comes from.
That's even better though. Like knowing nothing about the book when I first seen the title, I say, okay, we plant seeds. This is it's something's becoming. There's seeds of it's an immediate it's a thinker, as I like to say. You see that title and now you're intrigued. Now you have to know what the hell the Seeds of War is. So wonderful title, man.
Thanks.
Of course. Just checking over here to make sure I didn't miss any of these wonderful comments. Oh, thank you for popping in, brother. Alex Valdiers. I'll be on the opposite side here, Jen Williams. I've only read The Ninth Reign and thought it was awful. Those info dumps every chapter are a crime. Hey, and the thing is that you can absolutely have your personal opinions, and I think they're wonderful because I think an author or a reader needs to know what you didn't like about the book in order to understand that may love that. I've had a negative review from a really good buddy of mine make me stop everything I'm doing because what he hated about a book made me more interested in it than anything.
Yeah. Same for me. When
yeah.
people say too much cursing, normally it's a sign that I'm going to enjoy the book.
I have to say, now that you've kind of dove into it, the comment was, I like grimdark, but wow, this is too dark. And I said, hold on, what's his name? I have to have that now.
Yeah.
And I was thankful I did. So, just I think that every review, as long as it's done kindly, whether it's a good or if they loved it or didn't, is valuable. Brian, Chris Rocchio is a good friend of mine, super guy. I'll put you in touch with him if you'd like. Oh man, that would be so cool. And I'll have to say, I reached out to him at the end of last month, and he really the same experience that you've had with him. One second. I sent him an email. He got back to me in 5 minutes, and yeah, I'm doing an interview with him on the 30th, which will be
Nice.
super fun, man. Yeah. So thank you for that, Brian. And yes, he's a wonderful guy from what I see, and he's been all over BookTube lately.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. So there you go, Ryan. He'll be on at the end of this month. I'm hoping to have the book done by the time that I chat with him. It just makes it more. I could go a little deeper, but even if it's not 100% done, it'll still be really fun. So I love that you took what you had been writing, something that you weren't necessarily 100% happy with, and from that this came. Something that has been well received, something that from what you said you're very happy with. I think that is so cool, man. I'm very happy for you, and from the success that I see and the people that love your book. That's pretty much the golden line right there. I'm happy for you.
Thanks, man.
Of course.
Yeah.
So talk about if there are any, talk about any struggles maybe that you've had that have kind of helped you grow as a writer.
Yeah, I think the growing as a writer, just in the actual act of writing, there's really nothing better than just writing. Like, just keep writing as much as you possibly can. I think that's like the best way to grow, because the more you write, then you're going to have problems and you're going to find solutions for these problems, and then you're going to read back what you wrote, and then you're going to be like, this is awful, and then you keep writing and you're going to understand why it was awful, and you're going to do better next time. So just by writing it, you're already getting better just from writing. Like, you don't need to take classes, do anything. Just write. And I think about it like a video game, right? Like, we're playing the video game of life. Like, I'm level 32 at the moment as a human,
Yeah.
but I'm level but I'm level, like 10 or like 7 or 8, whatever it is as a writer. So, it's essentially like me as a writer, I'm never going to write the same way as someone who's been writing for 30 years or 20 years or whatever it is. So like I just have to keep writing, because if you don't write, like you're not playing the video game, then your time is not counting. So you just have to keep
Real
writing all the
life
time.
RPG.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, that's how I think about it, because I think it's more fun to think about it that way.
That's
And
beautiful.
it's to be honest, like in terms of struggles that I faced and things that made me better, I think it was one thing was it was quite tough in the beginning, was handling criticism. But
Ooh.
I I basically was dealing with some beta readers in the beginning. I really struggled finding good beta readers in the beginning,
Mhm.
and obviously I was still quite uh, a young fledgling writer at the time, and it really hurt in the beginning to hear some of the very true feedback. But I also heard some really bad feedback that still to this day I still don't really agree with. I think it's just people that weren't the right people to be reading the book in the first place. So that's something I struggled in the beginning, was really figuring out if people are the good beta readers and they just happen to have really harsh criticism, or are they really not the right people to be helping you craft and take your book to the next level.
I
And
love that.
that's something that I really struggled with in the beginning, to be honest.
I think that what you're saying and
Oh yeah.
Lauren's comment here is really what I was going to point out. Good beta readers are worth their weight in gold, and what that means from the outside as somebody who wants to write, who's taking this advice to heart and will use it. What that says to me is you're writing a fantasy book. You don't want somebody that wants a nonfiction about history of George
Yeah.
Washington's side hobbies
Yeah.
reading your book. So when a author says good beta readers, they're not like people who will love my book and say they love it. That's not what they mean. They're somebody who is accredited or had enough experience to be critical in a positive way, or if
Yeah.
not in a negative way, but if they didn't like the book, what they could be critical about.
Yeah.
They only know what they're talking about if that's what they read, if that's what they love, if they're familiar with it. Because somebody who reads strictly romance novels and then goes to something like grimdark, epic fantasy,
Yeah.
you may not know what the intended audience or be that intended audience to give such critical
Yeah.
advice, especially for beta readers. That's a process in which you're
I mean, I would
publishing a
go
book.
I would go even further and say that it, someone who reads fantasy is not necessarily qualified to give feedback in specific fantasy subgenres. So
I
what I
love
mean by
that.
that,
Please tell me.
so what I mean by that is like, so for example, I was one of my earliest beta readers was someone who was, she was a fantasy writer herself as well, um, and one of her comments was like, I don't understand who I'm supposed to be rooting for. Like who like basically it's like all the characters are bad. Like she doesn't understand who's supposed to be the main character, who's supposed to be like the one she cheers for. And I'm like, it's supposed to be kind of dark. Like you're not supposed to like any of these characters. You're just supposed to find them interesting. But because she had
Mhm.
never read a grimdark story or like grimdark adjacent story, she just didn't really know that. And it's and
We were
Tom.
just talking about Tom. Tom, when you were shouting out about Seeds of War, sorry to interrupt, but he's probably only stopping by for a second. We were just talking about you, Tom, when you gave me the lesson on Seeds of War when we were talking, the Beardsman, you and I. Anyway, so sorry. So that's a wonderful point. Would
Yeah.
you kind of keep going on that a little more? Because
Yeah.
if I
Like
just put a book out, how do I choose somebody to read my book that I know is going to be a good beta reader?
chances are the first few are not going to be that good, and you're going to have to be prepared for that. So it's like you have to go through trial and error pretty much until you find the good ones, and then like Lauren said, when you find good ones, treasure them, make them your best friends, whatever it is. But please make sure you keep them, because it's really hard to find beta readers who truly understand what you're trying to do, and they are your intended target audience, because that's who you're supposed to be writing the book for. If I'm writing a book which is like adult epic fantasy, I'm not gonna have a beta reader who mostly reads young adult romantic fantasy, right? It's just completely different target audiences, even though they're both valid subgenres and even though they're both fantasy. It's really just not the same audience at all. I mean, maybe some people that like some of these books also like the other books, but the target audience is quite different. So, like I wouldn't offer myself to be a beta reader, for example, if the book was really heavy on romance, for example.
Sure.
So I think it's just like, just because it's fantasy, ask the people, what are your favorite books? Like, what books do you love to read? Like, what are some of your favorites? And then you're going to start to have a better picture of, what kind of books they like, and are they going to be potentially a good beta reader for you or not?
Oh man, this is gold. I'm writing that down really quick. Bear with me, folks. 2 points real quick while I'm writing that down. Those couple points that I have in my head that I'll forget, of course. 2 things. Book Mama 87 says, I think some people might feel like they have to say nice things because they got a free book from the author. I struggled with this at first. Yeah, I did a lot. And this may or may not be my other half, and she may know that about me. That's saying this comment. So please stop being nice. So nice. Authors need and deserve your honest opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Book Mama is correct. It's honesty is the most important thing in reviews and in feedback. I mean, we all want to hear that our book is great, but I think even more than that, we want our book to actually be great. So our book can only really be great if we have people who care about us and they care about the vision that we have for the book, and they're nice enough to lend us their time reading the book and giving out honest feedback. So it's really just all about honesty.
I love that. I love that. Oh, 1 second. And then the second comment that I really, really loved, and you touched on this, I think you need to give clear instructions to beta readers of what you need from them. And I think you're so right, Alex Valdiers. As an author, I can see that 100% why you're saying that. But also, as somebody who wants to truly give back to this community and the joy that it brings into my life, and wanting to be of service or of a positive influence, I want to know how I can help an author critically. So maybe giving a little bit of, hey, this is kind of what I'm going after with sending this book to you. If you could touch on these points, that's where I am personally as an author, and I'd love your feedback on those.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alex is absolutely right. I think to me it's essential to give. I mean, if you don't really give your beta readers clear instructions of what you would like them to comment on or focus on while they're reading, they're really not going to be able to help you in the way that you would like. Because, for example, when I send my book to beta readers, I tell them specifically, don't focus too much on the grammar, don't focus too much on like typos and finding that kind of stuff, because it's still going to go through editing like multiple rounds after this. Like, what I'm really focusing on is, did you enjoy the story? Like, is it flowing well? Do you like the characters? Is the plot interesting to follow? Like, like on a developmental level, that's what I ask them to usually focus on.
Good for you. I have kind of experienced that a couple times. I haven't gotten many like actual advanced readers copies. I've gotten lots of review copies, but I think an important part that you're touching on is, before that book's out to the public, you're asking a reader to do kind of, sure, I hope you enjoy the book, this and that, but here's also, if you don't mind, I've got this book, I'll send it to you, and for your honest feedback, these are the kinds of things that I would love your feedback on.
Yeah.
Man, that's wonderful. And I'm so glad, Matt, I'm about to throw the comment up because I was going to touch on this a little bit later because so I'll just go into the comment. Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews, he put out a video, a wonderful video by the way, where I
Yeah.
asked tons of fantasy booktubers, me being one, what their favorite fantasy book published in 2023 was. And Seeds of War was one of the few that got multiple mentions, man. Good work,
Yeah.
Joao.
I honestly did not expect that. I really did not see that coming at all. And I was just like ecstatic. Even when I saw that it was mentioned the first time, I immediately went to Twitter and posted about it. And then I
Yeah,
kept watching the video and I saw that it was mentioned again. And I was like,
yeah.
what do you mean it's mentioned again? Like, I just did not expect that.
Because
So
he
that was
didn't
awesome.
specify in his rules. Because the rules were, hey, what was your favorite 2023 novel? Not indie novel, not traditionally published novel, not sci-fi or which sci-fi or fantasy. And out
Yeah.
of traditional and indie authors, man, you made that list multiple times. I'm just so happy
That
for
was
you, bro.
awesome. But you know something I also realized on that list that I was really happy to see is that almost half of the books mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, were indie.
Yeah,
So that's, I mean, it just shows you how much indie publishing is growing, especially in the fantasy stuff.
I love, and I don't have much of a context for before because when I joined YouTube, I had binged watched a few YouTubers, Matt, Mike's book reviews, some Daniel Green. Let's see who else. And then I found people like Case and Bookshelf after starting YouTube, and I just naturally fell into representing indie authors and giving them a place to talk about their books, and that wasn't planned. And I'm so happy to see there's more people finally finding the gold that I have found in this community,
Yeah,
man. And it's such a beautiful thing.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I just
Glad to
wanted to
hear
say,
that.
man, that's wonderful for you. I'm so happy. And let's see real quick. Uh, no problem. And
Love that.
she's, man, a support system. You have to have it, and I've got a wonderful one, and I love hearing about everybody else's. It's so cool, and it's very necessary. Matt also says, in terms of being nice, I got kicked off the SPFBO judging because people found I was too critical in one of my reviews. So I feel this discussion. I did not know that, Matt.
I did not know that either.
So so let's just put it this way, Matt. I hope you're still listening. If I know you've read a book and I know that I really am considering buying this book or reaching out to this author, if somebody was to say, who is, and this is in the nicest, kindest way possible, like positive, if somebody was to say, who is the booktuber you would go to find out if that's really for you. And Matt, that would absolutely be you because you are a kind person, but you're a critical person. I You break it
I really
down
like
and
the way Matt does his reviews. It's like completely raw, and like non-scripted, just like raw emotions
and
whenever
we're
reading the book.
done or something like
I really
that.
respect that.
Yeah, he goes something like, and I'm done. It's like, all right. I like how you kind of led that
Yeah,
in there,
that's
letting people
awesome.
know that these thoughts are fresh. So yeah, Matt, you know what? Let him kick you off, whatever. I still think you've got a wonderful critical brain, man, and I would go to you for a book if I wanted the critical laydown on it. Thank you for popping in, Andrew. The
And
Fool's Tale is his booktube channel, and man, one of the best in the game. Really, he's doing such a good job with his videography, which I'm pretty sure he goes to school for or he went to school for. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Like lots of people go for that and still can't do what Andrew does. He lays out his videos in a way. He's got a good personality, and if he's talking about your book, he really gives it what it deserves: enthusiasm, consideration, being critical, what he loves, what he didn't like, and he's really big on like the feel and look of a book, which I am too. So big shout out to
I
him.
haven't
He
read his
says,
book yet, but I hear he's a really good writer as well.
"Yeah, the harbinger of justice."
Yeah.
He says, "Sorry, brain freeze. Authors get more from critical and honest beta readers too." I think that's a wonderful point, Andrew. Um, yes, Matt, it was a great video. Let's see down here. Brian says you should surround yourself with people who will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. I think that's a pretty good point. Book Mama said, "That's interesting, Mass Fantasy. I would think they would have appreciated that. Yeah, right. Being critical is really what you need to do in a competition of 300 books, fellas and ladies." Chris says, "This topical is very insightful, not only for my own writing, but yes, that is exactly my perspective too, Chris." I love that, man. And here's a question. I love this. Ryan says, "How does João do marketing?"
And how much time do we have?
As much time as you want, man.
Man, marketing is kind of a hard one to talk about, because I think pretty much everything you do and just you existing online can be considered marketing. So I think there's so many answers to this. Obviously, like, a lot of people do it way better than me. Like, you've had Ryan on the show, and he's obviously like massively successful, and he's kind of the one who wrote the blueprint that I've been following for a while. Like, so I think he wrote in 2021 or 2022, he wrote a post. I forgot which blog he wrote the post for, but it's essentially like a mini guide on how to kind of set up your book launch for indie publishing. And I kind of followed that, the first few steps, and I also took a course with David Gogburn, which Ryan also recommended. And it's just a lot of things. Like, how do I do marketing? That's a very broad question. Just to answer in a more kind of simple way, like, I try to focus on everything I can control, pretty much. So it's like I focus on preparing as much as possible before the book is out. Making sure that I have a Goodreads page, making sure I have the author page on Amazon, making sure I've got the links on my bio and all my social media, making sure I'm doing the cover reveal timed with the date that my pre-orders are opening, making sure I engage with the community, and, like, just, in general, hopefully I have a positive attitude, and people tend to gravitate to people who have been nice to them, or like they've recognized that they thought this guy is a nice guy.
Yeah.
And I try to make that my brand, like being a nice person and just like giving back to the community and like helping people out whenever they message me. Like, I'm always like responding to people's emails and DMs and things like that. And I would like to think that kind of helps me out in terms of marketing, is having that sort of presence and like just being active in the community. Yeah.
I can speak from that personally. This is a wonderful example. You and I have been talking and friends for a little while now, and I believe you were doing a special on your ebook, or it was the hardcover edition. I don't remember, which we'll get to, by the way. And because I know you and how you are, and you're a wonderful person, and you're a wonderful community member, and people love your books and just all this great stuff that you're doing. You asked me, I believe, "Hey, I'm doing a sale. Would you mind retweeting or doing a post for it?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, of course." So that's a natural response to what you were just wondering. It was no question. Of course, anytime you would ever want something like that, you're one of the guys, one of many people I would do that for. And I'm pretty sure that's everybody's take on João, man. So I don't think everything.
The key thing in terms of like engaging with the community is like I try to give more than I ask, or at least before I ask for things,
Wow, I like that. Do more than you ask. That's one thing that my wife is huge on, is the golden rule. Do unto others as you'd like done to you. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And she's actually really good at that. And sometimes I'm just not. And I think you touched on that a little bit with try giving more than asking. You'll find that it just comes together. I love that. I wanted to shout out to Bibliotheory. He's got a wonderful channel going. Thank you for popping in, man. So, creating a hardcover of your baby, right? How was that, man?
It was awesome.
See it. You got it?
Right.
Yes.
Here. It's got the dust jacket. Yeah.
Beautiful.
To be honest, I'm really happy with this edition. This is my favorite edition of the book so far. mainly because I collect hardbacks. Like you have all of those hardbacks up there, and it's just like it just feels like surreal. You know, the paperback, it always feels kind of flimsy. You know, it's like you can kind of crack the spine, and like some people treat paperbacks not very well.
Mhm.
But hardback has always been like it just feels like it has more quality to it, and
Oh,
it's like when you
yeah.
open it, it just like feels nice on the pages, and it's like opens well. You can read well because the font is like big enough. It's just
I have to
nice,
shout out.
you know.
I had
Yeah,
to say this is one of the nicest ones in my hands. Like
yeah,
EL or HC Newell's. I almost said EL Montague. My bad, bro.
yeah. And
Um,
I know that she puts a lot of effort into that.
well, I think that you guys have that a lot of that in common. Then I think anybody who puts as much work as I know you and HC Newell put into their books, and yeah, she's got footnotes, and this is actually it's funny. It wasn't right in front of me. That's why I grabbed it. But it's a really special book to me. My wife ordered it for my birthday from her, a special edition. And we were like doing it on our live or whatever. And there's a bunch of like happy birthdays and stuff in here.
Yeah,
But anyway,
I remember she
it
was
is.
even doing like the paw prints from her dog, like as
You
part of the
remember
series.
that?
Yeah, like, that's
Yeah, that's
awesome.
her
Yeah,
dog's paw print.
exactly. That's amazing. Like she
It's
really does a lot for the publishing books.
Yeah, but it just kind of touches more on the point of the hardback that you've put out, man. That was your time and effort, and you didn't have that, and you wanted to create something. And if that, I'm just speaking on the possibility of doing that someday. That had to have been so special to you.
Yeah, it's been really nice because I think a lot of indie authors. I think it's more common now, but if you go back maybe like 5 years, there wasn't really the possibility of having hardbacks for indie authors, and especially not with the dust jacket. And the costs involved just didn't make sense in the first place. So a lot of people just didn't do it. Uh, and I mean, obviously, it's not my best seller. Like ebooks is where I move the most copies, obviously. But I think there's something special about having the hardback. You know, like people can touch it and they can feel it. It's like it's harder, so it may not be higher quality, but at least it feels like it's higher quality because it's like hardcover. You know, it's like you can knock someone in the head with it. So
Yeah,
it's like
yeah. If an intruder comes in, I told Crystal Matar, she sent me, and this isn't even a hardback. She sent me her books. I said, look, I'm setting those bad boys right next to my door because if I have an intruder, I'm knocking the shit out of them with your book because that bad boy's huge, and I'll send you the
yeah,
pictures. But yeah,
yeah,
no, a hardcover just feels heavy, not too heavy, but just heavy enough, and it stays open a little better than like a brand new like soft cover. I feel like, and
yeah,
then as I just feel I understand it's hard to put into words to feel the experience of a really nice hardback, but I totally get it. And I think everybody else does too. It's just that it's a thing. It's a thing, man.
yeah.
So having that chance to put your baby in those beautiful clothes, if you will, that's wonderful, man. I was so happy to see that you were doing that.
Thanks, man.
Of
Yeah.
course. So whether it was earlier in life or more recent, when did you know you wanted to be a writer? When did you find that passion for it?
I think there's kind of two answers to that. So like I've always liked writing since I was a kid, pretty much. Like when at school in Portugal we had like obviously I didn't have English classes because I wasn't in an English speaking country, but I had Portuguese classes. And we
Hmm.
had to write little like mini essays every time we had like a little test or a little exam in school. And the little essay was always my favorite part. And I always had pretty good grades because of it.
Uh-huh.
And and the teachers always said, yeah, that's like your strongest part is like you're good at the tiny essays and stuff. And and then I kind of started, like exploring it a little bit more, but then I became a teenager and I got interested in other stuff that wasn't related to writing or anything like that. I kept reading. I've always been a very avid reader, but there has always been this sense that like it's really hard to be a writer. Like it's really hard to write books. So it's like it was almost too hard, and there wasn't even a point in trying. And I was really wrong, to be honest, at the time. If I knew what I know now, like I would have spent all that time writing like Lord of the Rings fanfic or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I kind of stopped writing and then I picked it back up. Actually, just in 2017, when I mentioned earlier, a couple of friends, they gave me The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss
Ooh,
for my birthday, and I hadn't really picked up a fantasy book in like 10 years before that.
wow.
So they really brought me back to reading, and they actually kickstarted my writing career, because reading Name of the Wind was like, this is fantasy. I can write fantasy. I can try to write this. Like, I love this stuff. And I've kind of slowly become more and more obsessed. And by the time I finished the first draft of Seeds of War, which is 2020, uh, I knew that I could potentially make this a thing. Keep writing more books. It's like, obviously I'm still quite far away from turning it into like a full-time gig, but I'm working towards it, and that's eventually my goal.
You're inspiring. It's hard not to interrupt you and just say that, because I see the same thing I see in me. I see in you and a lot of other authors. We're all very self-critical at times, right?
Yeah,
We find ourselves with this mountain and we're like, today's not the day. Tomorrow's not going to be the day. I'm going to make an excuse then. But what you did is you found a passion that you had, and then it wasn't going away. The passion is in the back of your head, and it just needed a little spark. And you're doing what you're doing, which is taking a craft that you love and you're honing that, and you're becoming better, and you're finding out how to become better, and you're reading, and you're doing the thing, man. So that's
yeah,
very
that's really it.
inspiring to me and anybody. I'm sure everybody that's watching and anybody that wants to write themselves. It's like, yeah, dude, like it's a big thing. It's a big thing in your life, and if you've got that passion, you're going to do it. And then if you do it bad the first time, you're going to have that passion to back you up to find out what you need to do better.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
that.
Just keep going.
That's amazing. Inspiring stuff, man. That's gold. Bibliotheory. This is the equations that I could have done in school. The other ones, they escaped me, but I like this one. Reading experience. Kindle is greater than paperback, which is greater than that's greater than hardcover. Collector experience. Hardcover is greater than, yes, paperback greater than Kindle. That's perfectly put.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's why I normally buy the ebook first, and if I like the ebook a lot, then I buy the signed first edition hardcover or something like that, just for my own collection. Yeah,
Touching on Tom Bookbeard's wonderful comment, which I totally can relate with. Paperbacks are for reading, hardbacks are for hoarding. Yeah.
yeah,
The ones that I always joke with Ryan Cahill when I was talking to him. I said, I had to find the stud in the wall for your books. I couldn't just, no drywall. I had to find the stud, buddy. But yeah, you
yeah,
get you get the hard covers. I build my own bookshelves. So, I always make sure that they can have a heavy load, because I love my hardbacks, and it seems like you do too.
yeah. Same, man.
Um, uh, I know this is a little random. Who in the heck draws so good? There's a dog, guys, in the background that is drawn that
That's my
probably
wife.
nobody's.
That's
Dude,
not me. That's my wife. My wife is she's a really good drawer and painter. She's as a hobby only, but she does really good. Yeah,
shout out to the wifey, bro. Because I bet nobody's like, what the heck? I didn't even see that. I can see it. I've been noticing it, and I had to speak on it because that's a
yeah.
wonderful
It's
draw.
a golden retriever
I can
from a friend
tell.
of ours. Yeah,
It's like, and that's a compliment. Like sometimes, you're kind of far back and on the internet and the other side of the world. I may not know what that blob is, but I can 100% tell that is a golden retriever.
yeah.
Huge shout out. Yes. Oh,
It's
and LLR says, did you do a lot of research about war or other aspects of the novel when writing Seeds of War?
I did research about certain things that I was inspired by, but not specifically about war in particular, because I decided for myself that I'm not going to limit myself with historical accuracy, because I'm not writing a historical fiction book or even an historical fantasy book. So it's a book about war, but there's a lot of magic involved, and magic really throws away everything that has to do with historical accuracy away from the equation. So it's like I can have them fight with, weapons, but I can also have them have bombs and explosions, and I can also have them have muskets and like older weapons as well. So I just played by something which is the rule of cool. It's like whatever I think is cool and whatever I think fits the vibe of the book, I kind of rolled with it, to be honest. It's like, I like having all sorts of crazy stuff happening in a way that it doesn't throw the readers away from the immersion. But I didn't necessarily research any specific wars in particular, like to see how they fight and things like that, or like specific battle strategies. Like all of that stuff kind of came naturally, and just I tried to put the magic and the kind of the fantasy elements in the front, and then all the strategy and the battle planning and everything just kind of comes after that, pretty much. Yeah.
I love that you said that, because I didn't realize that that was going to be a struggle of mine until you just said that. And now I can skip that struggle. If I do this research before I start writing, I'm such a perfectionist and critical on myself that I'm like, okay, is this 100 million% accurate? And if it's not, somebody's going to call me out on it. You relieve yourself of that burden.
Yeah.
And do what the hell you want to do.
Like the only accuracy that you need to have is within your own story and within your own world. So like if you say something on chapter 1, you cannot contradict that until the book is over. As long as you don't contradict anything and it's all coherent, you can kind of get away with anything, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. Internal consistency. Exactly.
Madcat2701, wonderful comment. I love that. That just packages up what Joao's saying. Internal consistency is more important than realistic. Wow. Writing that down. Wonderful.
Exactly
that. So Tori. Oh,
hey, Tori.
You have to thank you for being here, but I'm reading The Bloodstones. Come on. How good is that? Have you read that, Joao?
I have not. No, I have not. I have pre-ordered it. It's on my Kindle, but my TBR is really long at the moment. I have lots of things to do. I'm not even actually reading much at the moment for the past month or so. I'm really late on my readings. But I would love to get to The Bloodstones. I've heard so many good things about that book, and like not just from the BookTube community, but like just like all over social media. And it seems
one
really
thing
promising.
one thing I'm doing with Tori's book, because I didn't read the first one. I knew of her as a booktuber first, and then wonderful gift was finding out she writes too. So this is my first novel of hers. I know she had Phased, which was her first book, different series, but I am digesting this one slowly, so I'm doing for another booktuber what I would want done to my book. Like, Tori and I have talked on a live and for other things like what's the word? Like how to do certain things on YouTube and stuff like that. So she's been helpful in me growing this channel and being more technical and ways to do it. And I'm digesting it slowly and I'm loving it. So I wanted to make sure to shout that out. She also says, I'm very excited to read season 4 this next year too. I'm behind. Don't feel bad. I am too.
Yeah, that's okay.
I am very behind.
That's okay. Like I'm really behind as well. So like there's no pressure whatsoever.
And Chris says, yes, read The Bloodstones. Yeah, dude. You are very now, if I remember correctly, you've already read The Bloodstones, right, Chris? I believe you had the arc. I don't know, my brain sometimes does this thing where it like totally gives me the wrong remembrance. But if I'm right, he is one of the people who was like, you have to read The Bloodstones. So super happy for you, Tori. I wish you all the success on that and your channel, of course. Um, Joao, if you could read one or two or three, however many you choose, novels for the very first time again, which ones would they be?
That's an interesting question. I think I would probably like to read The Blade itself by Joe Abercrombie again, because I'm completely in
Mm.
love with the First Law world, and just I love every single book in the whole series. And I would love to just experience the awesomeness of Sandan Gulakta once again, and how he's essentially the personification of just just every struggle we have, like physically, but also like he's also got nothing to lose, and he's just kind of a
He's
ruthless
also a
bastard as
human,
well.
but he's also
Yeah,
human in
exactly.
certain points too.
Yeah, yeah. So that's one I would love to read again for the first time. Like I also recommend people, if you haven't read it, I recommend the audiobook, because the narration is by
Oh,
Stephen Pacey. Might
Stephen
just be
Pacey.
my favorite narration that I've ever encountered, to be honest. So that was just really, really good. Um, I'd probably pick The Name of the Wind again, just because Patrick Rothfuss writes prose really, really beautifully, and it's something that never fails to impress me. Like I can't write like that. I can't write beautiful prose like that. It's just not really my style. But I really appreciate it. I really appreciate how detailed he is, and how meticulous he is with the prose, and how much intent he actually has in every single thing he writes.
Mm.
Obviously, you can argue that he also gets lost in it a little bit. He gets a bit lost in the sauce when it comes to the plot and the
Lost in the
characters.
sauce. I love that.
Exactly. But his prose is just flawless, and I think I haven't really encountered anyone who can kind of match that level. Of course, you have like Ted Williams and a few others, but from the newer generations, I haven't really seen anyone who can kind of be on that level. And maybe a third one just to finish, probably, like, actually this is going to be a bit controversial, but maybe like Way of Kings by Brendan Sanderson as well, because
Ooh.
I kind of admire him in a lot of things that he does. Like, he's not one of my favorite authors at the moment, but I think he accomplished something quite special with The Way of Kings, like the scale of everything that he's proposing in that story, and just like how many plot threads he has moving at the same time, and how many characters he has to juggle, and they're all really coherent, and they all really make sense, and they're all really relatable, and how many different sorts of magic systems he's got going on at the same time, and plot threads. And I have no idea how you're even able to plot something like that, like something of that magnitude.
Yeah.
And reading that for the first time, for me, it was kind of a treat, because for all these three books, I'm like, I can never do something like this. I could never write with the scope and the scale of Sanderson. I can never write with the characterization of Abercrombie, and I can never write with the prose of Patrick Rothfuss. So because I don't think I could do that, I'm even more impressed by it. So I would love to read all those three again. Yeah.
Wonderful answers. And not only that, I think those are important answers to you, and they speak to me in this way. You've picked three books that you thrive to be more like, or something that, or just something that influences you very, very much so, and makes you want to do what you do in your way and do it better.
Yeah.
I love that, man. Speaking on Brandon Sanderson, that's actually the latest I've bought from him. I've read Elantris. I have Warbreaker, but it's the mass publication or mass printed, like, little tiny one, and like my hands are huge, and like I just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I am not going to read.
I didn't really like Elantris that much, or Warbreaker. Like, I'm more of a Stormlight Archive guy. Like, I like the scope and the scale of things, and how big it just feels in general.
Yeah, Elantris was like, it was good that I read it, because wonderful writing, but I found out that I'm not huge in political intrigue. Like,
Mhm.
I do like some of it, and even some stories I love political. For instance, well, probably The Empire of Dust by Anna Spark Smith. there's a lot of political intrigue in that. And at first, it was pretty daunting, and then it kind of just grabs hold of the story. So I think even books that we don't love are very beneficial. And I
Yeah.
can't wait to get to the Way of Kings.
Yeah. If I can say something about you said something that actually kind of resonated with me a little bit. It's like the political intrigue thing, because it's like for me, it's like I found that for me the best books with political intrigue aren't really about the political intrigue. They're about the characters who are doing it, and it's like
Mm,
if you have boring characters doing political intrigue, no one's gonna like the book. But if you have really compelling characters and you really get invested in their motives and what they're doing and how far they're willing to go to reach the political goals that they have and things like that, that's what really makes like really good political intrigue. I mean, George Martin is really good at doing that in Game of Thrones. Like you can really just understand the motives behind each of the characters, and it's just like done beautifully. And if you're doing it with characters or nobody really cares about the characters, nobody understands why they're doing what they're doing, then it's probably going to fall flat.
ooh, I love that point, and that makes so much sense. Other than George R. R. Martin, can you give us another example of one that you found really exciting as far as politically?
No, not off the top of my head at the moment. But
Well, if you do
yeah,
think of one, shout it out or
yeah,
message me because I'd really like to find that. And that's one that I'm currently in the middle of. I've been in the middle of it for like a year now. I
yeah.
stopped to
Yeah,
read indie
I'll
books.
start thinking about it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
But yeah, the Game of Thrones, that's where I'm at right now. It's good, of
yeah,
course, right?
it's
But I
amazing.
wanted to, yeah, I wanted to shout out to BellTube. What a
All right,
refreshing guy, man. He
thank
started
you.
a booktube channel. What has it been like? Maybe a month ago, month and a half, and man, he's on his way, brother. It took me like 3 months to get 100 subscribers. This guy was like 2 days, and he deserves it.
Well,
He's got the personality. He does his videos well. He does different things every time. He's got fun themes. So if you guys haven't checked him out, man, go check him out. I'm sure you all have, but he's a wonderful guy. Um, so I had to shout that out. And one second. And I believe exactly what Tori said. Joao, you can totally do it. Anything that you were saying, I don't know if I could do it. I think absolutely. Look how far you've come from where you didn't like how you wrote to
yeah.
having a well-received book, two well-received book, amazing.
Thanks, Tori.
David Hopkins says,
Yeah,
dude, skip Elantris and Warbreaker, go straight to Way of Kings. Cool.
David knows what's up.
I'm excited. Sam Paisley, Elements of Time, his series. He's a debut indie author. Man, how you doing today? Yeah, he's in the same. Yep, he's in the Eastern Standard Time. So we're in the middle of our day. I'm so happy you popped in, brother. Um, Tori says, totally agree, Joel. Political machinations are good when the character investment is high. Oh, quote it, put it in your diary, guys. That's it. That's how you say exactly what I tried to say in a million words.
Yeah.
It's like she
Another
writes or
example,
something.
actually, I was just thinking about it. Like it's not fantasy, but it's not even a book. It's like a show, House of Cards. I don't know if you
Ooh, I
watched
haven't
it.
watched that.
It's basically like grimdark book, but it's contemporary, and it's essentially like following the president of the United States, who is a complete and utter maniac in
Hmm.
many levels. It's essentially like imagine if the president of the U.S. was like a grimdark villain in a way, and it's really good because you just understand how corrupt he is and how his mind just so twisted in general. And I don't really care much about the U.S. politics and all that stuff, but I cared about him as a character, and I wanted to know what he was going to do next.
That takes some involvement. I can't wait to. You've got me really wanting to watch that now. I've never had any interest in that show. Just have not no particular reason. Just never
Watch the
thought about
first
it.
episode and see how you get on. Yeah,
I will. Maybe me and my wife are always like trying to find that next series. So maybe that's it.
yeah,
Um, let's see, David. I knew that you would touch on this. He is a Shakespeare guy, 100%.
yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful study that would be. But for me, I can't really wait to go back and take what I didn't really like in high school about Shakespeare and see if I do now. To be or not to be, right? Um, Tori, I haven't read this. Have you read this, João?
I read the first
Greenbone
one.
Saga?
I read Jade City. I haven't read Jade War and Jade Legacy, but I agree. I think at least Jade City has the workings of a pretty good political fantasy saga.
What is her name?
Fonda Lee.
Fonda Lee. Yes, I couldn't think of it. Thank you. Andrew agrees. Of course, Bell too, man. Brian, you're the man. Yeah, I really want to read the Greenbone Saga. I've seen when I first popped into BookTube, like watching it and then starting my channel. That was like the series being talked about, how it's comparison to like The Godfather and like an Asian setting. Or I hope I'm kind of touching on that the right way.
Yeah.
That seems very intriguing to me.
You're in for a treat.
I can't wait. Joshua Walker, he's got a book coming out, The Exile of Gold.
Wow.
I can't remember the last part. Next year. Can't wait for that, brother. He's been a wonderful supporter of the channel and of the community as well. I just woke up and I'm hopping on to say hello. Hello, man. And João, I read your short story recently. Best short story I've read in ages.
Wow. Thank you very much. That's
Thank
awesome.
you for saying that, Josh. Man, that's gotta feel so cool, João.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
Craig says, by the way, I love the name Craig Bookworm, and it's spelled just the most intriguing way. I love that. Chiago, and I would have totally butchered that name if I hadn't have talked to him before. Lovely guy, by the way. Wonderful guy. Chiago Abdallah's Ashes of Avarin series is a good example where politics is done well, but driven by great characters. Awesome.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And E.C. Greaves over in New Zealand.
Hey.
I just recently showed my wife how far away New Zealand and everything is from the U.S. And she's like me, very bad in geology until you look at a map, right? And it's so cool what the internet does. You are the example I gave her. I said, so when I'm talking to Ed or Nick Horvath, and they're over in New Zealand, and then Australia's right here, Richard Swan, I've talked to him, and he was in, Australia, which is so hard to schedule, right? Because there's only like so many hours in the day that it's like reasonable to talk to each other when you're that far apart.
Yeah.
So, hey, man, thank you for popping in. Huge supporter of the channel and the community since the very beginning. Thank you, man, for popping in. He says, hey, João, hey, Matt, just got to work, so I'll be watching this today when I can. Thank you.
Thanks for stopping by.
So I wanted to touch on it a little bit more. When I first started our chat, I had kind of mentioned that we had talked before. You took a chance on me when I was really, really just beginning. And I wanted to have you back on for the reason in the context in which we're talking now. It's much more of what I'm here for, the experience you've had and the knowledge that I hope to keep gaining. This has been so much fun. I just want to thank you again. So what are you working on currently?
So now I'm working on book 2 in the Smokesmiths. It's going to be called Thorns of War. It's just a continuation of the story of the main 3 characters. And yeah, it's been kind of challenging actually, because I've been quite busy with life and just work and everything else. And I haven't really had that much time to focus on the writing. But I'm getting on with it, and I think I don't want to overpromise anything, but like maybe by mid-January I'm gonna send the book to my beta readers.
Awesome.
And I'm hoping to have the book ready around the same time that Seeds was published last year. So that would be like maybe May of 2024. But I mean, don't quote me on that. It's just kind of a tentative date. Yeah.
Well, now, as somebody who is about to dip into your book and who has been looking up to you and what you've been doing for a while now, that's good information, because I want to make sure that when you're wanting to send those out for good criticism, that I'm caught up. So people want to know that even if it's tentative, it gives a good window. So thank you for that. So I always kind of ask these both together. Sometimes they're the same answer, sometimes not, for like conventions and stuff like that. But what is next for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I think I'm gonna the I think the correct answer would be like just keep working on the series. I have Thorns of War, obviously, and then I have another novella that I have planned uh, just after that book, and then I have at least another book, another third book that I have also sort of planned out. I haven't really written the first draft for any of those two stories yet, but
The
they're
brewing.
coming. They're coming, yeah. Uh, but at the same time, I've always been I'm kind of interested in exploring something a bit different. I'm not sure if it's gonna come to fruition in the next few years or if it's something more down the line. But I don't know if you know this, but like I've been binging the well, not right now, but like earlier in the year, I binged the 12 books of the Cradle series by Will White, which is
Oh,
a
I did not know that.
it's like a self-published series of just progression fantasy, very like sort of anime style. Like think about the old shonen anime like Dragon Ball Z and Naruto and Bleach and like One Piece and all those. And I've always been a massive fan of anime as well. Like I consumed so much growing up, like it's actually crazy. And I read those books, 12 books in like 2 months because and this is coming from like a massively slow reader. So I
Wow.
just completely binged those books because I found them so good. And I was thinking about doing something like that, like kind of in that vein, like focusing like progression fantasy and stuff like that. Very like shorter books, publish them a bit quicker. Maybe even do like serialized content at some point on Royal Road or like just another format.
Yeah.
Um, so that might be something for people to expect down the line. Obviously, the books would be quite different. It wouldn't be like the same style as Seeds of War and Smokesmiths. Would be a bit more like, I guess, for younger audience, stuff like that. But yeah, that's something I eventually want to do. Yeah, something like
That's
that.
very exciting. And I think the fact that you covered that it's not going to be just like what you've written before is very attractive quality in somebody that you're looking forward to their writing. Because me, I love the fact that there's authors out there that write, okay, they write a darker epic fantasy. And then to switch to what you're talking about. I haven't read Cradle, but of course I've heard so much wonderful stuff about it.
The thing is, like, it's kind of risky from the author standpoint because like I've worked really hard to build a readership already, and I will continue to work on this. Thanks, Bell, too. And I'll keep working on the current series as well. But the thing is, like, the readership doesn't necessarily translate. So it's like a lot of my current readers who liked me for the grittiness and the kind of like the character focus are not necessarily going to like the sort of progression fantasy stories. And it's kind of risky because I could just keep, you know, cashing into the success, and like I guess that's kind of what the smart decision would be, to just like focus on what I'm already publishing in the same style, and just kind of keep going and like that. But I've also like I mean I also want to explore my creative side a bit and just like explore with different styles and different things. Like I also have like horror novels that I have like the outline for, and I also have sci-fi novels that I have like in my computer that I that I haven't really kind of given the light of day. So I want to explore a lot of different avenues, and I think that's why I write in the first place, is to kind of be creative and explore things. So
Yeah.
yeah, so like I'm not going to focus only on the like financial and what makes more financial sense. What the correct business decision is. It's kind of a hard balance to strike, but ultimately I'm just going to go with whatever I want to do.
I think this is just my personal opinion, and that's going to vary from everybody to everybody, right? But me personally, saying and talking on what you're putting out there, I think there's nothing more exciting than knowing you can write in this genre, and then, oh man, I've seen that and I like that. Uh, but let's go try, check this out. I think there's so many people, maybe the majority, that would beyond for your fans. As
I
so.
really, I mean, that's the hope. I would love that to happen. Yeah. But,
I think following your heart and your creative ambition and your creative brain, where that tells you to go, at the end of the day, I don't think you could ever regret doing that.
yeah. And exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I'm so happy for you. Chris says, I'm just getting into progression fantasy. So excited to see what you come up with. See, I'm just dipping into it as well. And I heard that I've been spoiled because it was, well, is progression fantasy and lit RPG the same?
It's similar, but I mean, I don't quote me on this because I'm not like an authority figure in defining what each is what each of them is. But from my understanding, is like progression fantasy is kind of like there's a very clear like power level, so like people can kind of go from one power degree to another, and it's like a massive difference, and it's quite pronounced. And you can kind of like cultivate your own power so that you can kind of go up and become more powerful. So it's about ascending and becoming more powerful. And lit RPG is essentially people who are from our world, from our world or from other fictional world, and they're sort of like playing a kind of a virtual reality game where they have inventory and they have like RPG stuff. Like they go on
Yeah.
quests, they kill monsters and stuff, but it's all like it's essentially like just an RPG, but it's like in book format, and the character knows that they're sort of like playing a game in a way.
So I'm reading and listening to, which I highly recommend, and which was highly recommended to me, Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Yeah.
I am in love with it. I love the audio book. It's highly I don't know the difference. Like it's not an audio book, but like Matt called it something in one of his videos, but it's got like sound effects. It's like
It's
it's
an audio drama. Is that what it is?
yes, I think
Yeah.
so. But
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's a totally new experience because you've got this guy. Yeah, so thank you, BellTube. That's very helpful. So that is game lit or lit RPG Dungeon Crawl. Okay, yes, dude. I'm listening to this, and it's just like everybody else says. It's like if I explain this premise to you, you're probably gonna be like, dude, what? I'm not picking that up. But then you listen to it, and oh, it's right there. It's so addictive, and it's funny. If you play video games or you have in the past, you will totally catch on. You've got this guy in the background. It's like new achievement, and he's got like this really funny voice, and there's it's wonderful. So that's my one and only experience with lit RPG. I have not read any progression fantasy. Should I start with Cradle?
I would say that yes. I mean, Cradle is one of the few that I've read. I haven't read too much. I've read the Ascendant from Michael R. Miller, but that one is, at least the first book is quite light on the progression elements.
I've read that too. I did not know that was considered.
So how they
progression
have
fantasy.
the Ascendants, and they have like you can kind of like cultivate his core to grow the corn and progress to new levels and things like that.
Yep.
That's kind of considered progression fantasy.
Makes total sense now.
Cradle is a lot more heavy on the progression stuff. Cradle is basically all about the progression. It's like, the character is obsessed with progressing. And to be honest, that's kind of what makes the story.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. I found it really fun. Yeah.
Man. See, I've heard these titles before, but kind of diving into what they are and what they're considered and what they're about and how they tell the story, such as the obsession to level up or progress, progression fantasy. That makes a lot more sense to me now. Thank you guys. I always learn more when, instead of giving me like a definition, I get examples of what is something and what is not something. So that was perfect. Nick Horvath, man, thank you so much for popping in. He's over in New Zealand as well. Sledge versus a Labyrinth. If you guys watch my show, you've probably seen the interview with him and I, and heard me gush over Sledge versus a Labyrinth. It's amazing. Cutthroat, noir. Gosh, it's really hard to like pinned down, but it's wonderful, guys. It's a kick-ass prose. It's amazing. So thank you for popping in, Nick. Andrew, I knew this, but dude, yes, Dungeon Crawler Carl is the best. Laura Huey, thank you for being here as well. I've been seeing your comments, but I wanted to shout out. I'm so Sunset Sovereign is going to be so good. I just got that. I'm really looking forward to reading that. She's another indie author, and we're going to talk soon, so that's going to be fun. Yes, Josh, he says, I can't wait to read Dungeon Crawler Carl. I haven't finished it, but so far it's just it's so good. And this is what I've heard, Josh, was which Brian or from Belltube is saying. Much better on Audible than reading. It's the best audio lit RPG. It's phenomenal.
Okay, that's a good recommendation. Actually, I might pick it up.
Yeah. It's totally different from any other audio that I've ever heard. Audiobook ever. It's very unique. Daniel says Songs of Chaos, which is Michael R. Miller, Ascendant, and there's two others. I forget the names. He says it's very light on progression elements. It's only a little more about progression than, say, Stormlight, which Sanderson himself says is not progression fantasy, and I agree. That's very, very helpful.
I agree with that as well. I think it's very light. It just gives you a little glimpses of what it is. But yeah, it's not the main point of the story.
Brian, I did not know this. I will definitely make that a topic for when we chat, man. We're going to be talking soon. And yeah, I really had no clue that you've read so many lit RPGs. I'm excited to get some recommendations from you. And Tom also agrees. Dungeon Crawler Carl is the best. There we go.
I gotta pick it up now. Everyone's recommending it.
Right. So, man, I'm so excited for what you're doing, what you've done, what you're going to do. Oh, man. And I think it's I've said it a couple of times, but it inspires me. And I'm so sure it inspires so many other people to do what themselves either like to read or want to write. You're doing it. And I think that's awesome, man. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I remember from the first time we talked that you were at a point where you weren't really sure whether you were going to go back and start writing. And tell me if I'm wrong. But I believe you said that it was your support system. Your wife has said, if you want to write, why aren't you just writing?
Yeah. I mean, that's basically how I started, like in 2017. It's like I had just come to the UK in 2016. So like it took me about a year to kind of like stabilize and have like a normal life. But then it's like, my wife is like, well, just give it a shot, and she's very supportive. I dedicated Seeds of War to her because she's obviously the first person to like deal with all the hours that I spend working on the book. And, she's the one that gets more directly impacted by the lack of having me around every day and just to do everything just because I'm so focused on the writing and the publishing. And she's been very supportive, and yeah,
it's wonderful. Would you mind if I read the dedication?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is his dedication page, which I love. To my wife, W, without whom I would never have the strength. To anyone struggling beneath the surface, this book is for you. That's a wonderful dedication.
Thanks. I wanted to highlight that because I think a lot of people are struggling and in ways that other people aren't really familiar with, and I think anyone can relate to sort of like pretty like big lifetime struggles and things that kind of affect your life as a whole. And I think it's this book, and like especially, I mean, at least for me, like the way I wrote the characters it's for people who are essentially going through something. Like the characters are not in happy places in their lives, or like they're trying their best to find their footing, and they're all displaced in a way. And I wanted it to be, even though it's kind of a gritty and kind of grim story, like I wanted to be like a little sliver of hope that things will get better and that they will improve. And the point of it is just to continue and just keep going and keep moving forward. And yeah, I mean, the book is obviously for everyone who's struggled. Yeah.
I love that 100%, man. That's some of the finest qualities in a human that I think anybody could ask for. Empathy, that goes a long way, and I love that, man. I love it. Nick Horvath says, "Wow, man, that speaks to me." Yeah, and Mad Cat for real agrees. Absolutely, absolutely. Chris says, "Bam, awesome and very fitting to the read." And hello, I'm so glad you popped in, Knox. It's good to see you, and as well as So Free Wolf. It's okay, we're at the end, but there's this wonderful thing that YouTube does for me, and you can play this bad boy until the cows come home. Uh,
I love that.
yeah, and so, man, if you'll tell just everybody, I'll have the links below. I think I've covered them all, but if I haven't, please tell us where you are as far as social media, where you're active, and where people can go grab this book right here.
Yeah. So I'm on pretty much all social media at João Silva Writes. That's my handle.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of want it to be everywhere because I know that people like some social media and they don't like other social media.
Right.
And I want to reach as many people as possible and from different sort of like social circles. So yeah, if you're on Facebook and you don't really like other social media, I'm on Facebook. If you're more of a TikTok person, I'm on TikTok. I'm not very active on TikTok because it's not
Making
my cup
videos,
of
yeah.
tea, but yeah, but I'm there. But I would say that I'm most active on Twitter because that's where most of my writing friends and my writing community is at. So I'm way more active on Twitter than anywhere else. But I'm also on Instagram. It's always the same handle for all social media. And the book, you can buy the paperback or the hardback. If you're in the US, you can buy it on Silverstones. They have actually signed bookplate editions, so you actually get it, I think, for basically the same price as Amazon, or I'm not even sure if it's cheaper. And you get the signed version with a signed bookplate. Or you can also buy it on Amazon. You can also order it from Barnes and Noble, wherever your shop of choice is. And if you just want to give the ebook a go, it's exclusive on Amazon. If you're a Kindle Unlimited person, it's on Kindle Unlimited. Yeah, it's pretty much available anywhere. I would say the ebook is more limited just for Amazon, but the paperback is pretty much available for all the major retailers. Yeah. I think you got muted, Matt. Or maybe I'm just not listening myself. That's weird. I can't. That's weird. Maybe it's me. I don't know.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Those things happen so frequently, little nuances like that I've kind of just like learned to just take care of it real quick. I hope everybody else can hear me now. What I was saying is, well, what was I saying? Oh, a few people that I should chat with in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna tell you to talk to people who I consider friends because
Sure.
I think they're great people and they're great writers. So I would say Sadir Samir. He's been kind of a bit of a social media hiatus for a while, but he's a great guy with lots of stories to tell, and he's just a great guy to talk to. I was gonna say Joe Lee as well, like Joseph John Lee, the author of Bleeding Stone. He's a great guy as well, and he deserves a lot more recognition than he gets because his book, at least the first one which I've read, is really, really cool. And I was gonna say Mitriel Faywood, the author of A Gamble of the Gods. I've met her personally as well. Like she's a lovely person.
Repeat the last name again.
Mitriel Faywood. She's the author of A Gamble of the Gods.
Gamble of the Gods.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I was probably going to say maybe you could also invite BHS Garcia. She I haven't read her book yet, but yeah, you should definitely check her out. Yeah, so I guess
Awesome.
those are my recommendations.
Those are great recs. So Sadir, he went on a little hiatus, and we were scheduled during that. So I told him, so we'll talk eventually, is what I'm getting at, whenever he's ready. But yeah, I can't wait for that. Great suggestion. And then these other three, I'm so glad to find that I'm not super familiar, and I'm very excited to become familiar.
Yeah,
So
I
I
think all
appreciate
of
that.
them deserve more recognition. So that's yeah, it's good.
Wonderful. So thank you for those again. But I just want to say, I really appreciate you coming back and hanging out with me for quite a while, man. I don't often talk this long. Um,
Man, it's been an
and
absolute pleasure, to be honest.
it's one of
Time
the
just
longest
flies.
ones on the channel. So it's been so much fun.
Yeah, I could say the exact same, man. It's honestly really nice for you to have me for a second time. It's been awesome.
It will definitely happen again. I love talking with you, man. You're in there. You're in the indie community. You're about what I'm about. So we'll talk soon again. So thank you again for letting me borrow you. Thank your wife for letting me take you away for a little bit. Thank you
That's
guys
okay.
thank you guys for who tuned in live. Thank you for watching in the future. Of course, the YouTube stuff to help the YouTube channel grow. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It also helps the authors that I'm interviewing. I believe my next. I'm terrible with scheduling. If anybody knows me, I'm getting better. But I believe my next interview is on the 14th, which would be tomorrow at 9 p.m. with B.A. Turner. Really excited about that in the author. So tune in. I'll have everything official on my Twitter. And I also have my extended interview schedule on my Discord. So check the links out if you want to join. We'd love to have you. Thank you guys again, and have a great morning, noon, night, afternoon, wherever you're at. And we'll talk next time. Have a wonderful day.
See you, everyone.